Mhm. Living the life. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Market Talk Sunday. We got a lot of things to jump into today. A lot of stuff on my mind, a lot of things I want to jump into, and we're going to touch on a few things. One of the top things is pretty much the biggest company, which is Nvidia, pretty much, and their CEO, and how he believes this next release of software will be probably the biggest release ever. Now, while I don't necessarily agree with that, I do understand that the idea of making things seem bigger than they are is part of the selling and sales culture of the leaders of companies and things like that. But also, sometimes people are just nerds and they get nerdy about things and they think that that's the top thing. But I do think it's important to listen to what he says because Jensen kind of stands in a pivotal place in this country as far as impact and leadership of technology, and he's at the forefront of it, along with some other leaders. But he's one of the more prominent ones, so we definitely want to dive into that. I want to definitely listen to a little bit of the AWS CEO. He had a interview in which he conducted, and he talked about some things I thought were interesting. I want to tie those into everything that I see that's going on. We got a brand new record again, another record of 401k millionaires. I want to touch on that a little bit. Everybody knows how I feel about 401ks in general, but I'm going to give just a little bit of my take on that and where I see that projecting out. And there's this belief, a very, very strong belief, and I'm not sure where I stand on it, but I have to watch the trends. I have to watch and see what's changing. I need to make sure I'm paying attention so that we're able to take advantage of these situations, or at least not be blindsided by a lot of them. The landscaping of a lot of what goes on in the internet is evolving right before our eyes. And I think it's important that we kind of examine it a little bit just to see where it impacts us and where it can also help us or hurt us in the areas in which we are not looking at. All right. So I want to talk about the 401ks first, just because that's an easy starting point as far as investing is a very popular thing right now. I want to say a lot of financial influencers, coaches, personal finance people, a lot of them are really rising through the ropes right now. But to be fair, I do believe at some point it will slow down and they will have to find another lane, and things like that, because right now the internet is wide open for a lot of people to jump in that space. But I do think it's going to get smaller and smaller, especially as we go forward. And I do believe there will be quite a few bumps on the way down before we go back up. And uncertainty causes a lot of confusion, and fear leads the markets. Every day we talked about, the markets are very emotional in the short term. So it's kind of like that type of machine. And I think what we're going through as a country right now is going to play a huge role in that in the coming weeks and months and years. But we don't want to be stuck just in current situation. We want to make sure we're able to project. One of the things you will notice that I've noticed as I'm constantly perusing around, studying the markets, leadership, and things like that, what you'll find is there's a heavy concentration of older statesmen, right? Meaning a lot of the wealth is concentrated with older people. A lot of the leadership is concentrated with older people. And I think that's a telltale sign for young people who don't pay attention to, who don't have a real firm grip on their mortality and their evolvement over time. They really just see themselves at the current stage that they are at, and they don't want to take participation in their growth in the sense of, I'm young, I'm 21, so I want to do what 21-year-olds do, and I'm still young. I'm only 30, so I'm still figuring it out. They don't project extremely well. Something I tell you guys all the time. Youth does not remain youth very long. We spend a lot more time in our life as older people. It's funny to look at it that way, but you spend very few years in your young years, and you spend the majority of your life in your older years. It would be prudent of people to prepare for those times and elevate and evolve as time goes on, right? So let me go over this 401k breakdown. And this information is coming via, I believe, Fidelity Assets Investment Group. They have a lot of access to data, and they have a lot of retirer accounts. I kind of don't like that language, retirement, tied to it, but it is what it is. There's really not much you can do about it, but new record of 401k millionaires, it exists, guys. It exists. Let me adjust this here. There's a new number of 401k millionaires, and the conflict going on will test their discipline to sustain it, right? You scroll down here. It says strong saving habits and a focus on the long term has helped push the number of 401k millionaires to a new high at Fidelity and drove double-digit balance increases at Vanguard. Discipline could help in times of market turbulence and geopolitical tensions, okay? The number of millionaires rose to 665,000 in Q4. That's up slightly from 654 in the third quarter, okay? Fidelity Investment holds about 17.5 trillion in assets under management. That's AUM. The majority of those assets, we know where they align at. A majority of that is housed with the older. I want to say, what group is that? Gen X, yeah. So the majority of those funds are housed with Gen X, right? So they have the majority of that growth and things like that. So it doesn't never really shock me at all when that goes on. But that money has to go somewhere. That money has to go somewhere. Let me tell you what my biggest issue with the retirement accounts is that it links the term saving and retirements all in one, right? So, for example, you cannot save yourself to wealth. It's just a concept that does not work, right? And I really wish it was more displayed as investing, right? Because your 401k is an investment vehicle, right? You're not typically laying your cash in cash, right? Meaning that you normally have it in a vehicle in some form of asset, typically an index fund, a mutual fund, something like that, the majority of the time, right? But they say savings rates, and then they say retirement and all those things. And I think it gives a bad mental note for most people, right? Because saving is not going to ultimately work. It's really investing, but they don't link that language together. And I think it's intentional. Ultimately, I think 401ks are good for a lot of people. And I've noticed that, unfortunately, for a lot of people, they need penalties in order for them to stay the course, right? Even though the balances indicate, let's just say, $1 million, right? It's not actually $1 million at this moment, right? You cannot go to your retirement account and go collect that $1 million and liquidate it and move it. No, you can liquidate it, but they charge you multiple penalties in most cases, right? So we're talking, typically a 10% penalty plus your tax rate wherever you're at that particular time in your. And so realistically, you're looking at a 35 to 40% hit, 50% for a lot of a lot of people that may be even higher, right? Depending on when they choose to liquidate that fund or whatnot, right? So think about that. If you have $1 million, you probably could be looking at 650,000 cash after, penalties and taxes and whatnot, right? Still a lot of money to a lot of people, still a good nest egg, but it's not really $1 million. It's on paper. The cool thing about the account is that you don't have to actually look at it in that way, right? How I choose to look at vehicles is I look at them like leverage, right? So what that means is it makes me look better on paper in a lot of areas to say I can inflate my actual worth, right? We know if we were going to say liquid dollars, which is irrelevant to most people know how to assess I shouldn't say that. When a financial picture is being depicted and broken down by somebody, they pretty much know what they're looking for. The average American does not know what they're talking about, but someone that is assessing your financial standing, they understand that really ain't $1 million, right? Liquid, but it does offer leverage, meaning that you can borrow against it. You can withdraw without penalty in a lot of cases. And so it gives you leverage while maintaining a balance that kind of can put you in a certain atmosphere, if that makes sense. So although I'm not the biggest proponent of them, I do understand that they have a good value for a lot of people, primarily because if you look at these numbers, right, and when you're talking about record number of 401k millionaires, what you have to understand is that when you look at these numbers, you have to realize a couple things, that they're only going to get to that place if people do not touch the balances. And so when I was reading through a bunch of different articles on it, what I found was that a lot of these, and heck, even mines offer this, but I manually, manage mines, is just an automatic kicker, meaning that every year it automatically increases your contribution. So if you're doing, I don't know, 15%, right? Because they're saying what Gen X is doing is about 15.7%. What they're doing, which is the recommended amount, is about 15%, right? Well, if you're putting away, let's just say 10% in 2025, and you have a automatic increase of 3%, then you'll do 13% the next year and 16% the next year. And it automatically does it without you having to partake in it, right? So what that means is, one, automation in people's day-to-day life really helps them not ruin things if they have to personally, intentionally participate, right? So if you automate habits, for a lot of people, they can stick to the process. But if you make people manually do things, they may not follow through. And so I found that this automated process is helping a lot of people by not looking at what comes out of their check, right? I don't even see that. It's just, whatever my check is at the end, I just use that money. I hear a lot of people say that, right? That's just what they say. Yeah, I don't even pay attention to that. It's automatic. It's automatic. And that's a common thing I hear from a lot of people. And so I find it has tremendous value for a lot of people to do that. It does not do well for me because I like to be very focused and intentional about what I do. And I like to personally do things. I don't like to automate a lot of things, right? I don't automate payments for my credit cards or nothing. I pay them manually. And that allows me to pay very close attention on my spending habits and for me to critique them and say, hey, what did I spend that on? Or what am I doing? And then I look over and I say, okay, last month I did this, the month before that would change, right? So I'll do it. And you should be checking these consistently, at least monthly. You should be doing a financial picture at least quarterly. Everybody's different, but find what works best for you. But these automated services I find work well for the 401k. Downsides is the older you get, you're likely to experience a market downturn, and where a lot of people screw themselves is, they panic. And so right now, you're going to see a lot of leaders in front of people trying not to panic them, right? Oh, I don't want people to be nervous. I don't want people afraid. And so they will say things that do not cause mass hysteria, right? And so you'll notice that they'll be very intentional. They'll be very authoritative and very confident because they don't want to cause that type of mass hysteria, because that will impact markets. But as we will go on and as we read on, what we'll find is that there are little chinks in the armor, right? So if you look into private credit, and if you look at BlackRock right now, where you see they're having a lot of their investors wanting to redeem a lot of their investments, and it's kind of rocky right now. There's a little bit of a pushback, right? Because when you invest something, it's typically for the long term. They lock up your money. They pay you a certain percentage based upon the amount of money that you put down. They give you a breakdown structure. But people like, no, we want access to our money because there is some nervousness around liquidity, right? So you could imagine if people at the very top are looking to increase their liquidity, I can only imagine what people that are stuck what a liquid assets are actually doing who don't know what they're doing. So overall, I think it's cool. 401k, millionaires, whatever. It does help those people stay on track, but they can't remember that they can't actually grab that money, but you can borrow against it. You can do a lot of different things. It is a form of leverage. It's a tax deferral asset, all those type of things. So there's benefits to it, but it does tie up a lot of your money that prevents you from using it in other areas. That's part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I understand that it does have value. And a lot of people need to be forced into a lot of these situations to where, they don't make these decisions to screw themselves over. Because the 27-year-old you and the 35-year-old you probably is not as intelligent, not as experienced as the 50-year-old you, right? I have found, even with myself, a lot of things that cause me apprehension and, anxiety, at some point when I was much younger. As you get older, it doesn't impact you the same. You've experienced enough. You go like, hey, that's not really a big thing. Like, part of the stuff that's going on with the global world right now, a lot of this stuff we've seen before. But the one thing that shocks me is that the people that get nervous and afraid, they do it all the time. It's like their brain never evolved and it never grasped the concepts around the world. And like, oh, we've seen this play before. Oh, we've seen this before. It's like their mind just, whatever's on the news. Part of the reason why I don't really watch it is they think that's what's really going to happen. Like, the news really leads a lot of people. So I just want people to pay extra attention to those kind of things. All right. So we're going to get into the AWS CEO. And the reason why is I still, and I will continue and forever say this, believe that Amazon is the best company ever, top to bottom, hands down. And just their process, what they've done year over year over year, is they're just pretty remarkable to me, right? Right now, obviously, the leader of that is, Nvidia for a lot of people. Okay, a lot, but that's just how I view it. So I pay a very close attention and a lot to what's going on with Amazon, a lot of their strategies, and a lot of what they're putting out there. Because one, it's either them or Walmart, who's like the biggest employers of people, right? I think Amazon passed Walmart for the most employees at one point, but I don't know where it currently sits at. But I just want to touch up on this interview just a little bit to point out some things to everybody so they can pay very close attention to what's going on. Okay. This is Adam Selipsky. He is the Amazon Web Services CEO. And yes, many people have CEOs inside of many companies. So you are the CEO of a bunch of different, like Amazon has a CEO that everybody knows of as Jeff Bezos, even though he's not the current CEO, but that's who everybody knows. But Amazon owns a bunch of businesses, and they all have their own CEOs that run those aspects of the business and things like that. So I just want you to pay attention a little bit to what he's talking about when he talks about employment and things like that.
We do see some customers who are doing some belt tightening now, but a lot of other customers are realizing that in times of economic uncertainty, that's exactly when you want to lean into the cloud. That's the time you want to capture the cost savings. That's the time you want flexibility to both burst as well as shrink your infrastructure capacity. And that's the time you want to figure out how to still innovate with fewer resources.
I'm wondering about profit pressures in the business. Operating margin went to 26.3% from 29, I think, in the last quarter. Wage and energy inflation is a big part of that, as it is for so many others. Any relief in sight there?
Well, I think that AWS's scale at which we operate is a huge help to our customers. If you mentioned the energy prices, and of course we're not immune to energy prices, but we're able to forecast and absorb a lot of different variations and different prices for different types of energy around the world. We've got long-term supply contracts locked up. We have large teams who deal with nothing besides procuring energy and other parts of our global infrastructure. So I think part of the value proposition we offer customers is being able to help buffer them, if you will, from these different ups and downs and different elements of their cost structure that they'd have to deal with on their own. So
is one way to look at it then that because of your scale and ability to deal with these things, you're willing to take the short-term margin hit because you're able to smooth that out for customers who see that as part of the value proposition of being with AWS?
So what he basically saying is this. How do you guys get those prices so low for your customers? Well, yes, they will basically do whatever they can to give the best product at the cheapest price to acquire the most customers and to get them inundated with their products and get them into their ecosystem, right? Very similar to what Apple does with its Apple Store, right? It costs, you can't just get on the Apple Store. It costs a little bit of money, and they gonna get a little bit of your money, and that's how they do a lot of control. Amazon has their own strategies around how they get their customers in their ecosystem, and one of the ways that they do is price control, and their CEO is going to go over part of that, how they produce that.
Well, we have a long history of lowering prices, not raising them. So I think we've lowered prices over 115 times in our 16-year history. And the way we do that is to innovate and to lower our own costs. And then we just have a philosophy where we generally pass those savings along to customers in the form of lower prices. So I think our behavior has been highly consistent. And sometimes things happen which really help our cost structure. Of course, there are going to be things that happen that are, at least in the short term, a little detrimental to the cost structure. But over time in our history, we've really just absorbed all of those and given customers a certainty and a continuity, which most of them have been unable to achieve on their own.
How are you approaching your own staffing? Certainly salaries, there's still pressure on those to go higher, but there have been certain areas where you've frozen hiring, other areas where you continue to hire. How is that trending as we look into 2023?
Well, John, as you mentioned at the outset, it is a time of significant economic uncertainty along quite a number of different dimensions. And AWS has hired a tremendous number of people worldwide for a number of years. And I'm talking all business functions, from engineering to marketing to sales to customer support to finance to HR and legal. And so we feel very well resourced at the moment. We are, along with the rest of the company, taking a short pause in hiring and going to keep our headcount levels where they are for now.
So as he talks about headcount levels, right? And he discusses how they're one of the biggest employers, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to keep our head count kind of where it is now, right? And I want you guys to really assess that, right? Look at where you work now. Tell me, has things changed? Have you acquired more employees? Have you lost more employees? Is it the same? Do you guys have job openings that never seem to fill? Where does it play at, right? Because as I look back, right, where I work, and I look back right before the whole pandemic went down, probably had about 40, 50 employees in our building, right? I would say, and that was 2020, right? 40 to 50 people, right? I would say two things happened. One, we changed locations, right? We changed buildings, right? In a matter of what, 5-6 years, staffing went from about 40-ish people to about roughly 8 people now, including me. So that's about 30 plus people lost in one location in about 5 years. And what I saw is not a lot of replenishing headcounts. So people would leave, or whatever the case is, and they wouldn't be replaced. Doesn't matter if it was in, private banking rep. It didn't matter. Like if they it's less and less people. And they change their hiring practices, and you see a whole bunch of emails and say, oh, we're hiring for this, we're hiring for that. Yet those positions almost never seem to get filled. I see it in my everyday life. So I can only imagine if you guys are seeing similar things in your work field, right? And that's why I always tell y'all, keep y'all day jobs. The storm will come. And every extra month of work and grinding that you're able to put in gives you an extra amount of time to weather those storms, right? When you hear these big companies talking about getting lean and, adjusting their sizes and really looking at who they're hiring, what they ultimately mean is we overhire during good times, right? There's a pretty Ray Dalio, who pretty much used to run one of the biggest hedge fund companies in the world. He has a bunch of videos, 2 of them in particular that I like on YouTube. I've discussed one of them before. There's another one that's pretty prominent, and I even got marketing for that or advertising for that recently. During good times, companies overhire. So market economic booms, there's no downside in sight. They hiring everybody. We got way more people than we actually need to do positions. But when their bottom line gets under pressure and so-called inflationary pressures start to put pressure on the corporation, I want you guys to remember this one thing, right? Companies are, for a lack of better words, a living organism. Their job is to grow, to produce, to scale, to hire, to innovate constantly. Like that is the goal of most companies. They're not to be the status quo and just exist. They need to replenish new talent, birth new talent. Okay. That ain't happening a lot right now. There's not a lot of new talent coming through the doors. They're leaning on their veterans. They're leaning on a lot of people that can get the job done. And if you're not one of those people that can get the job done consistently, reliable, your name could be in those papers. They're like, hey, sorry, we appreciate all your years of work. We're going in a new direction. And that will happen largely throughout the next coming months and years, as will continuously see layoffs in sectors, right? And you will only see some familiar faces wherever you go to patronize business, wherever you do your banking, wherever you get your coffee at, right? Whatever your day-to-day process is, you're going to see less and less people, and you're going to see 1 or 2 people that you're used to seeing, and that's going to be it. And you're going to see that at heavy rates, right? Because of Amazon, who makes a crazy ton of money, and they're keeping their head counts low, What do you think other companies that are going to be struggling to generate revenue is going to do?
I think we can still deliver great technical solutions and great customer service to our customers, given the substantial team that we have in place today. We feel really good about that.
So you said a short pause, but we're in Q4, and I think there's still questions about how well that goes and how we start 2023. What's short, and what are the most important signals that you're watching for in that?
Well, we don't have any specific timetable announced. I think we'll, as you implied, we'll kind of get through this quarter and into the next quarter, take a look at what's happening. I think, as always, Amazon takes the long view, builds with a very long-term mindset, far longer than most companies. So we will, at the end of the day, be primarily focused on what is it that our customers need us to build, what's the best path for us to help get them there. And we will invest in many, many different projects in AWS as well as across the broader company. And we will be unafraid to double down in areas where we think are really going to add value for customers. And so I think the real signals are going to be where we see customers either using services or coming and asking us about things that they need from us in order to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish.
And I remember Amazon had a store out downtown San Francisco. It was one of those automated stores, right? You go in and you put items in your cart and all that, and you had to be a part of the program. Obviously, you had to have the app downloaded and all these things, and you wouldn't have to pay for anything, like physically. It would automatically scan all these things and then charge you, walk in and out. But that store is not running anymore, right? And so it's interesting, which means to me, Amazon will try new things. They'll look to innovate. But if something doesn't work, they will quickly, and I mean quickly, get off of that. They will quickly get off of that. So they stop rolling that store out. And I think they still own the building, but it's not even occupied right now. It's just locked. So it just goes to tell you just a little bit about how much Amazon is willing to invest to ensure that they're on the leading forefront of innovative technology and things like that. No matter what they got to do to win, that's one thing you like about winners. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to do whatever it takes, okay? And that's one of the things that I love about studying their company, okay? A lot of people are trying that model right now, but nobody's actually perfected it enough to scale it, right? Because that'll be a lot of cost savings there, right? So as you can see, there is going to be a big situation when it pertains to employment in the future. There's a reason why I joke every time I get on there: wake up, go to work, do your job, keep grinding. Because I know, as someone that was, really kind of just getting started around the financial crisis in 07, 08, 09, roughly, on my finance journey and whatnot, in real time, I got to see what was it like when a economy is in distress, right? And the people that were aware of it, the people that have no knowledge of it, and things like that. And one thing I will say that will benefit me this time as I navigate these particular economic cycles with a more strategic understanding of what's going on around me, what I've learned is that, man, they are still building buildings around this time. When people are getting laid off, you will still see. I was taking this construction class, right? And one of the teachers there, right, really nice guy. He was telling a story about how he bought his first building in Oakland, California, right? And he's a carpenter, and he was telling like, yeah, it's around this time, 08, 09, 2010, right around that time, and people getting laid off and everybody stressing out, and they talking about everybody, everything's going down the drain, and he's walking every day, while he's doing his day-to-day process, and he's like, why do I keep seeing these big old cranes constructing buildings? They talking about we running out of money and struggling. He like, and everywhere I'm looking, I'm like, man, it's a bunch of buildings getting set up. It's a bunch of construction workers out here. They're still building while all these companies are saying, money's tied and all these things. So he said, man, I put me together some money and I bought my first building in Oakland. And then that buying that first building got me my next building. And I just remember him telling that story. And I'm like, yeah. And he was an older guy. So, that kind of puts you at a different state because you actually get to have a little bit more power over your life the older you get, right? The younger we are, the less autonomy we have. The older we get, the more control we have over our life, right? And that's why at some age, no matter what you experience from your friends and family and all those things growing up, at some point you get complete autonomy over the things you get to do in your life. And you remove the blame off of them or whatever you thought you could blame them for, and you put it on yourself if you're smart and you believe in your own abilities to get things done. And so I always remember that story like, so the next time, if I'm able to really be able to assess the economy, if I'm smart enough to really know what's going on around these times, I'm going to take full advantage of it. I'm going to get me some success out of the next downturn. While people are running from these problems, I'm going to run right to them and be like, oh, I want that problem. Thank you very much. So it was just one of those life-changing stories that will always stick with me. But it's similar to the things that I see playing on now, right? So we look at Amazon, we look at Walmart, we look at these companies that are laying people off, but they're doing small numbers. It's not nothing crazy to where there's mass hysteria. Like there's not nothing too crazy, right? So, but it's happening right now. I say all this because I'm going to connect all of these things as I see it happening, right? And a couple things are occurring right now while we're seeing the purchase of, entertainment rights and all these things. And I go, Alex said, so did you buy one of those houses on the hill? It's funny you say that. It's really funny that you say that because actually my uncle bought a house on the hills in Oakland, right? He bought a house in the hills in Oakland. They're very nice, by the way. But I did not. I was not able to around that time, and nor did I have any thought process of ever thinking about doing stuff like that 20 plus years ago. But things can change. Grit says, I hate about it morally, but during this downturn, I'm going to get my dream home off of somebody's foreclosure. Business is business. I wouldn't conflict the morality aspect of business to things. Homes are just businesses. And so if someone is no longer performing at their business and they're selling it for pennies on the dollar and you just come in and go, let me get that up off of you before the banks come through. Hey, that's business. You learn that from somewhere. Will you be visiting Mark Z's new mansion? No. So I want to talk about something important in which we've been discussing little by little over time, but it's starting to connect more and more. And actually this last interview that I watched from Jensen, the CEO of Nvidia, he actually highlighted something that's even more important. And I'm actually going to tie that, which is the interesting thing, to the whole Paramount, the Netflix, and Warner Brothers merger thing that went on. I'm going to show you how we're going to connect all those things coming up, right? But let's first get into what Nvidia CEO actually talks about. Let me pull that up here.
Meantime, the AI agent OpenClaw having a moment after NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang called it the single most important release of software probably ever. Deirdre Bosa has more. And Deirdre, a lot of people are confused. OpenClaw sounds like Claude, but it's not Claude, but it was meant to sound like Claude. But now the guy works at, OpenAI.
Yeah, just for clarity, Claude is basically the AI chatbot technology from Anthropic, right? And OpenClaw, which is being discussed here, is a product being presented by OpenAI. Different, similar in name, and there's a reason why there's similarities in the name, because the person that created and headed it, these companies tend to exchange leadership a lot. So the people that run Anthropic are former OpenAI employees, and they did not like the direction that OpenAI was going. They did not like the safeguards that it was playing with, and they decided to create their own company, which is Anthropic, which has the product called Claude. That is pretty popular. It's the most popular download on the Apple Store right now. It's number one. It passed up everything. I've heard nothing but a lot of good pundits speak highly of the technology. So I obviously look at OpenAI, Anthropic, the same way I look at kind of like Nvidia and AMD, where there's the 1 and 2 player, and at any point, those positions can shift. And so that's kind of how I look at it right now.
It started as Claudebot. So it was actually built on Claude, and then a lot of stuff happened. It was really funny how OpenAI ended up getting the guy. But anyways, it's more than just OpenClaw. It's about sort of these agents that can function on their own. And if Jensen Huang and many others in Silicon Valley that are talking about this, if they're right, then AI agents are essentially a death sentence for the internet's middlemen. Here's why. The entire internet was built for humans who search, browse, compare options, they click on ads. An agent doesn't do any of that. It already knows what you want, or it figures it out in the background. So it doesn't browse 10 hotel sites or read reviews. It goes right from prompt to transaction. It might still access that data through APIs and data sets, but it skips the front door entirely. So
this is important. This is extremely important for you guys to pay very, very close attention to. These AI agents, which we've discussed from shows before, right? Obviously, Salesforce has been one of the leaders in trying to design these agents. Amazon is doing their thing. They're trying to build their internal things. Visa is working on their agents. A lot of people are working on these agents. And what happens is these products are created in real time, and they're not prominent right now. We, the consumer, don't have direct access to them. So we don't know the actual impact that they will have because we don't pay attention to what's going on in markets. I think a lot more majority of people do not pay attention to what's going on with these companies. They don't pay attention every single day. They don't read, they don't study, their mind is too simplified to worry about their own personal issues that they're not able to prepare for future outcomes, because currently they're so inundated with information and entertainment that they can't even fathom what's going on in real time. And these agents, just listening to the amount of investment in them, listening to what Nvidia CEO is saying about the power that they will have, and then taking what they're saying and go, if this thing does take off, where does the impact truly lie? And I have some strong ideas where this impact actually truly lies.
winners here would be the endpoints and the pipes. That's airlines, not Expedia, hotels, not Booking.com, your bank, not the nerd wallet that sits in between. So infrastructure too would be winners like Stripe, Plaid, and Shopify. Yesterday, Kelly, Box CEO Aaron Levy, he told us that Plaid, not the nerd wallet that sits in between. So infrastructure too would be winners like Stripe, Plaid, and Shopify.
So infrastructure winners would be Stripe, Plaid, Shopify, right? So Stripe payment services, Plaid payment services, Shopify, producer. They're kind of talking about where they believe the winners will be. Now, I'm a big fan of Stripe, Plaid as well, but Stripe, I'm a little bit more fond of it personally, but these are not things you have access to right now. It just is what it is. Let me see here. Did PayPal buy? I don't think they did not buy Plaid. No. That's what happened. That's right. Visa tried to buy Plaid and they couldn't get it, right? It was Visa tried to acquire it or something. I think they abandoned it, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why I'm confusing PayPal with that. But anyway, Visa tried to buy Plaid and somehow, I don't know what happened. Visa was not able to acquire it. I forgot exactly what happened. But yeah, so they're talking about middlemen, all these things. Ultimately, what I'm seeing happening with going from consumer to the direct person and getting rid of the middleman, like what does that middleman aspect really mean is what we need to pay attention to.
Yesterday, Kelly, Box CEO Aaron Levy, he told us that agents need everything that an employee needs or a human needs, email, storage, and identity. And that could actually be 100 times their existing customer base. So that's not software as a service. It's software for agents as a service and could just be a huge market. That is why Jensen Huang called OpenClaw the most important software release ever, a personal AI that runs on your machine all day without even waiting for a prompt. That creator, as you said, just got hired by OpenAI, and the momentum here is unlike anything that we've ever seen in open source. The market is starting to sniff this out as well. You've got stocks like Twilio and Shopify. These are the plumbing that agents run.
So remember, automation. So for example, when she says they don't have to prompt, you know how when you say Siri and it prompts and you have to say something else, or when you're doing your OpenAI or your chat or whatever you want to do, or your Claude chat, and it prompts it and then you say a sentence and it speaks to you. These agents won't do none of that. These agents don't need no prompts, no nothing. It's automated by your tendencies about the things you already agree to and want, and it just takes care of it in the background. It's very similar to how your 401k is, where when your contributions, they just take it right out of your check. You don't even look it up. How many of y'all actually look at how much y'all contributed to your 401k last paycheck? How many of y'all know the exact dollar amount? Y'all like, yeah, my last paycheck, yeah, I put in $400, $700, $1,200, which might be kind of high for some people to do that, but think about that. How many of you actually pay attention to that? Or have you got so comfortable with it just being automated that you don't even look, you just focus on what your net is? When the check hits your account, you go, okay, they took the taxes out, they took my 401k contribution. Now this is what I have left, and you go on about your business. How many of y'all do that? If you feel guilty and you don't want to say you, which I understand, you can just say, not me. Point being, a lot of this will be automated, and I'm seeing how it's about to translate a lot into big dollars, right? I'm already seeing where these big dollars are going to translate into, right? Now, important part to pay attention to where the market is getting hit at, right? Because I already pay. I'm like, how am I going to take advantage of this? Where is there a lot of money that's going to be made? I know exactly where there's going to be a lot of money to be made and where the target audiences will start. Now, I don't know every aspect of it, but I have a nice thought process of some areas which is going to be impacted. Right now, let's talk about the labor market a little bit and what's going to be impacted as well, okay? Let's jump into that just a tad bit.
Welcome back. Some possible signs of an AI impact in today's jobs report. The bad report from this morning, we lost 92,000 jobs, and information services shed 11K. And there may be another indicator that better tracks the labor impact of AI as it's happening. Let's bring in Deirdre Bosa with that story for today's Tech Check. Hi, Deirdre.
Hey, Kelly. So that indicator comes from Anthropic that actually sees all of this data and where AI is being used. Take a look at this one chart. It comes from Anthropic's new labor study. So blue is what AI could theoretically do to your job.
So if you cannot see that, right, I'll give you some insight to what that actually is, because that's kind of a hard image to pull up, right? But what you'll see on screen is that what the early AI impacts have been and what areas have been hit hard and which areas have little to no market penetration, right? So you'll see places like information technology, computers, architecture, all those things slightly getting hit. And you'll see things like transportation, agriculture, construction, ground maintenance, personal care, barely getting impacted by it at all.
Red is what it's actually doing today. So computer programmers, 75% is covered. Customer service, 70%. Financial analysts, nearly 60%. But you got construction, agriculture, transportation, near zero penetration. So the physical economy is the last place that AI reaches. Doesn't mean that it won't get there, but according to the data so far, the last place it reaches. Now look at the gap here. Office and admin, huge blue, tiny red. Same with legal, sales, finance. That is the second wave, and it maps to where the enterprise AI deals are landing. Salesforce, Intuit, DocuSign, Thomson Reuters. They're closing this gap. It's basically also, Kelly, the Halo trade visualized. Heavy assets, low obsolescence. Goldman's Halo basket, it has outperformed capital light names by 25 percentage points this year. The company that's actually building the AI just backed it up with these numbers. And one more number from the study that I want to highlight that sort of was really, really interesting to me shows that hiring of 22 to 25-year-olds into AI exposed jobs has dropped 14% since ChatGPT launched. So companies are not firing people. They're just not hiring the next ones. And that doesn't show up in the jobs data as it stands. It's great for productivity today, but it's certainly a problem for the labor market tomorrow.
So they're not hiring people. We're just not replacing people after they leave. And how do corporations get people to leave? Oh, that's an easy answer. Make it uncomfortable for you to be at work. Change your goals. Say that, hey, your job, we expect this and expect that. Put added pressure onto you to feel comfortable. You start missing your sales goals. You start missing your project goals, and you start to feel a little bit of pressure. And so they don't want, this is a phenomenal strategy that these companies incorporate. They don't want to fire you. They want you to quit. So if you ever realize, hey, they're bringing in new executive management and they're adjusting goals and changing things, and you're starting to feel like, dang, y'all doing all this extra. Y'all doing too much. It's intentional. They're starting to have less employees around, and now you feel more pressure. You're getting more magnifying eyes on you. That's to make it uncomfortable for you to work. That is to change the atmosphere so that you walk away because you don't want to get fired. Right? To me, which is crazy, because in California, you get fired, they can't even tell your next employer that they fired you. You call for the reference, hey, did y'all fire this person? You can't even ask that question. So honestly, I don't know why y'all better off getting fired, but a lot of people have quit. I've seen it myself. Multiple people that I've worked with feel pressure, and they starting to see sales goals have evolved and changed, and a lot of the easy going stuff that was happening, they're starting to feel more pressure. And so companies will hire managers, new managers will come in, and they will put a different type of atmosphere than you had got used to prior. And then you'll start to worry like, dang, I ain't meeting my numbers. I ain't getting no raises. That happens a lot. And you start to feel like, dang, they might fire me, and I don't want to get fired, because I guess in our mind, that's a bad thing. Although when you go to study some of the greatest, most successful minds in the world, they like, man, I got fired from a bunch of jobs. Yeah, I couldn't handle that job. I quit that job. Like, it's okay. But you'll find that people will quit. And what happens when you quit? What does that do for a business? Let me tell you. They don't have to pay you. Once you quit, they ain't got to pay you no unemployment, no nothing. They don't have to be on their books, no nothing. That's just free money from them now. Your salary comes off the books, and they don't have anything to have to supplement you because you quit on your own choice, right? Now you get fired, especially without cause and all these type of things, or we're laying you off and stuff. You have certain benefits you can get. But if you just walk away, well, that saves the company money. And that's part of strategy one that they implement. There are a bunch of other strategies that they do, but that's one of the primary strategies in which they lower their workforce by getting people to voluntarily quit, right? And part of that is, they'll find other jobs and things like that, which is cool because that company don't care. But they got you off the books. And that's a strategy that they implement more and more and more. And I see that happen all the time. Now, another thing we need to discuss is the shift that I think is going to occur on the internet. And I think this is a very interesting shift. And I want to say this, right? Because for some reason, all these CEOs in these interviews we see, none of them like to have no mustaches or no beards or nothing. They all clean face, go on Capitol Hill. Everybody goes to Washington. And they talk in front of all the politicians. They all clean face. It just bothers me. Something about that. They be 65 years old, just cut everything off. And I'm like, something about that plays an image in our mind. I don't know why they do that stuff, right? It's just I've always noticed that, right? But there's going to be a shift to the internet when the AI agents are implemented. And by the way, guys, this will take time. There is a integration process that does not outrightly just happen because they have to condition you as a user of their technology over time. Adaptation does not immediately occur for people. People tend to reject change. When you get around your family, when you start to so-called level up, you'll find that the closest people around you are some of your biggest hurdles that you have to overcome because they are used to seeing you one way and their minds won't allow them to see you in a different light. And so they will try to prevent your growth, not even intentional. It's just, oh yeah, you'll always be this to me. You'll always be that. I've experienced that on a level before, and I understand it. But that's what tends to happen. So the adaptation of products and things, people are slow adjusters. You have people that still don't want to use mobile banking. Oh, I don't trust mobile banking. Okay, totally fine. You don't want to be able to access your stuff in real time. That's on you. But it's it's just a slow adoption of changes for people. So these agents will be a slow integration, and they will have to figure out the kinks in there, and they will have to figure out where the resistance is, and they will have to slowly adjust that over time, and they will integrate it. So I believe this is multi-years in the future before this actually occurs, because I think we're going to reject it. We're going to say we don't want that, right? We want humans to do everything. But humans are the ones that piss you off the most. Humans are the ones that argue with you the most. Oh man, they always the ones you think are picking on you. You ain't gonna really think a robot picking on you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the funniest part. So it's gonna be a slow adjustment period, but you have to get in front of the vehicle before it takes off, right? And I believe that Salesforce is putting a lot of money behind it for a reason. I just walked past the Salesforce building yesterday. It is a gigantic building. It's Mega Force building. It's the tallest building in San Francisco, and I don't think they're playing to lose. I do not think they're playing to lose. Not every product works, but I think this one is going to be very, very prevalent, and it's based upon other industries that are making changes. And I'm like, why would they do that? Why are they making that change? And now I understand why they're making that change. I totally understand why they're making that change. So let's talk a little bit about some of the structure changes of the internet and what we are going to see occur based upon these technologies, how they're going to impact us. And I'm going to tell y'all why I'm even more excited about Netflix, Disney, Instagram. I'm not excited about TikTok, but TikTok will benefit as well. I'm going to tell you why I see those things having a huge boom, because of the steps that will impact these AI agents that Jensen and Nvidia, who will supply a lot of the technology for those things to run. So that's part of its excitement of why I see this having a strong impact on those businesses and the outcomes of them.
Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang talking up the importance of the AI agent platform OpenClaw yesterday, calling it, quote, the single most important release of software probably ever. Deirdre Bosa has more in today's Tech Check. So what are the implications of this, Deirdre?
Well, first of all, Sarah, make no mistake, Jensen Huang is certainly talking his book here. Chatbot is one question, one answer, but an agent runs autonomously 1 million times more tokens, as he put it. So
I pressed the mute button. I think I muted myself. Anyway, so That's not the video we want. That's not the video we want. You know what? When you have technological disadvantages like me, I'm not a tech person. That's not the video I want. That's not the one I want, people. But that's okay. Let me switch it here. Oh, hold on. Let me just go through that video real quick. That actually, you know what? Let's just play that damn video because it might have something that I'm looking for.
Paramount's deal for Warner Brothers Discovery.
No. Who's laughing at me in the chat?
More compute, more chips, more Nvidia revenue. But beyond that hype, there is a real structural shift here. The entire internet was built for humans who search and browse, compare options, click on ads. Agents, they don't do any of that. It already knows what you want, or it figures it out in the background. So it doesn't need to browse 10 hotel sites or read any reviews. It goes right from prompt to transaction. The agent, it may still access that data, but it does so through APIs and data feeds. It skips that front door. So for investors, the question is, who wins and who loses when the user is not human? It's an agent. Well, the winners are the endpoints, the pipes. So airlines, not Kayak. Hotels, not Booking.com. Your bank, not the nerd wallet that sits between. And infrastructure companies like Stripe, Plaid, Shopify. CEO Box, Aaron Levy, he told me yesterday that agents need everything and employee needs, like emails.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so let me disregard that because I forgot the timestamp. There's two videos that have similarities there. But anyway, who's laughing at me in the chat? It's okay because I am not a chatbot yet, but I am going to turn myself into one of those AI personalities. Yeah, I'm going to clone my personality and then I'm going to use myself in videos. Yeah, I've thought about this for a while. I think this will actually work. Everybody else can do it, so I think I'm gonna do it. It reminds me of what was it? What was that celebrity show where they made people out of Play-Doh? I forget the name of it, but it was a good show. I don't know if they play it anymore, but it was celebrities and they were getting a boxing ring and whatnot, and it was made out of Play-Doh. Oh man, that was a good show. I'm not gonna say the name of it because I cannot remember the name. But dang, that's hilarious. But anyway, I'm sorry. Let me stay on track here, guys, right? Because I just need to tie everything together because my mind works in stacks. So I stack everything and then combine. Let me get to the Paramount strategy here, and I'm going to tell you why it's important. Where did it go? Where did it go? Let me close this. I don't want that anymore. Too much stuff on my screen. Too much stuff on my screen. Here we go.
Opening up the potential for big changes in sports media. Joining us for more on that is Alex Sherman. He is CNBC sports and media reporter. And man, there is a lot to go over here.
You know, I was thinking about this. Really, the sports part is a microcosm of the larger picture for Paramount, which is a bit of a dichotomy. Because on the one hand, David Ellison has said, we are going to invest with this new company. And there's some evidence that he's already investing. Like they've already, when Paramount and Skydance merged, he very quickly spent $7.7 billion on a big UFC deal, more than $1 billion per year. He has said, in fact, he said it yesterday to our Julia Borstein and David Faber, that he's very willing to pay up for the NFL. You know, and that's going to be a big increase in rights fees. They say they want to make 30 movies a year. Great, big number. At the same time, they also say, okay, we have $6 billion of synergies. This new company, Paramount Warner Brothers, is going to have like $80 billion of debt. That's going to...
Just for the clarity, when they say $7 billion of synergies, they're speaking to when there's a merger or a combining of an asset, the projected income that will produce by acquiring said business, right? So $7 billion is saying, hey, once we acquire this, then we can project and we can incorporate this revenue and income here, and that will be $7 billion. That's basically what they're saying, is just the income that they're projected based upon the companies merging and whatnot. That's what they mean by the synergies, right? So it hasn't happened yet, but that's how the projection works.
Need to be brought down and serviced. So there's going to need to be massive cost cutting and huge investment at the same time. So there's a clash there, and it's going to work itself out in the sports world, I think, because when CBS acquires TNT Sports, assuming that this deal goes through. The TNT strategy since they lost the NBA last year has been to acquire what I would consider to be second-tier sports.
I would too.
The French Open, they did a deal with French Open. They renewed AEW, sort of the smaller wrestling league. They signed up Unrivaled to a deal, the 3-on-3 women's basketball league. They did a deal with NASCAR.
And how you taking shots at women's basketball? Talking about second-class sports league. Come on, man. Like, that ain't right, bro. You better be careful. All the ladies on TikTok will come for you. They will come for you.
These types of sort of second-tier sports deals, the reason that TNT leaned into them is that they lost the NBA, so they needed them. They needed something to prop them up. As part of a larger CBS company and under the huge Paramount umbrella, I'm not sure they need these sports anymore. The distribution calculus becomes much different if now when you're going to negotiate with all these pay TV providers, you have all the CBS sports to lean on. In fact, David Ellison said we could show UFC on TNT. So maybe there's more borrowing there that happens.
You also, when we were just talking off camera, brought up something that he said yesterday about really going after the 800-pound gorilla.
Let's listen. Let's know what David Ellison said.
We have a phenomenal relationship with the NFL, and we anticipate that continuing for the foreseeable future. Genuinely, they are one of our most important partners, and we plan for them to stay one of our most important partners, having just delivered a historic season really in partnership with them. And, ongoing negotiations, we're not really in a position where we can comment. I promise we'll share something as soon as we have something to say.
So I would say the NFL is probably going to ask for at least a 50% increase on its next right. And already these companies pay, roughly, call it about $2 billion, depending on which company it is, per year. So if that $2 billion is going to $3 billion, that probably comes at the expense of something. Right. And so what it may come at the expense at is some of these smaller sports rights, where they can say, you know what, we don't need to pay for that. Doesn't really make much sense anymore. We don't need them for distribution anymore. That's one area where we can cut back, because we're going to need to cut back with something here.
Is there a home for all of those smaller sports or second-tier sports?
This parent company, Versant is a home for some of those smaller sports rights. Now, how many of them can Versant afford, I think, to be determined. But we're going to see, Lachlan Murdoch, the Fox CEO, already said it in his most recent earnings call. We are going to see a redistribution of these sports rights. And
I just want you guys to know that Murdoch name, right? That name is prevalent because Fox, not just Fox Sports, because Disney bought a lot of their assets. I forget that when they bought 21st Century Fox, I forget what year it was. But that Murdoch name is very interesting because I'm pretty sure that's the son of Rupert Murdoch, who was pretty much the person that basically had all these TV rights and all this assets and all this media stuff, and eventually sold off a bunch of stuff. I think one of his family members is running a lot of those companies, which left of them now. And he got a great deal. I think personally he did a good job. It's a similar thing to where you see with Larry Ellison's son, who runs Paramount, Skydance merger and all that kind of stuff. It's like they just giving the family business down to their kids, and then giving their kids billions of dollars that they have to go out and earn more of billions and billions of dollars. Wouldn't it be nice if y'all parents was billionaires? Wouldn't it be nice?
They're already preparing for it, where they're saying, look, we need to sort of reevaluate which sports are important to us and which ones aren't, because we're going to need this extra money to afford the NFL. And that's by far the most important sport to the broadcast network.
Are we seeing, when you look at these, what we're now calling the second tier sports, I hate even describing it that way.
Less expensive.
Less expensive. Are they getting the ratings that make the math work? Because historically, for an NFL or even an NBA, some of them were almost lost leaders to then use. The economics of them, you could argue, didn't work just on their own. They worked because they elevated a network. They allowed you to actually have higher advertising on so many other shows and other parts of the network.
Unrivaled has viewers, though, right?
Unrivaled gets.
Yo, did you see that? Did you see Shorty just throw that in there? Did you just see her on right? Like, come on now. Why you just throw that in there? Why you just throw that in there? Who watching? No, well, come on now. Who watching it? You see how she just trying to throw that in there?
But I don't know does it have viewers that are consistently coming back at the level you need
economically. Yeah.
Right. It's such a hard question to answer. Like, there's no easy answer to that.
It should be a very easy question. Not for you, but I'm saying it should be an easy question to math out.
Internally, sure, because they have all of the figures. But the reason it's difficult from the outside looking in is that these products have some value in terms of their weight for distribution among all of the pay TV providers. So any media company gets paid in two ways, right? Advertising against the actual product, and also carriage fees from the pay TV operators out there, right? Comcast, DirecTV, et cetera. So how valuable is a sport to any of these pay TV operators in determining how much they're going to pay for your network? There's no way from the outside looking in to really know the answer to that.
It moves the needle on whether people.
All right, guys. So let us connect the dots, right? So here's what I see happening. And it took a minute for this really to play out, but the more information that got delivered, the more I saw this, right? If we have AI agents making decisions for us in the background, and we no longer have to go on Amazon.com, have to go on Costco.com, have to go on Target and, Kroger and a bunch of these websites in which we constantly frequent in order to purchase items to have them delivered, etc., right? If a lot of that stuff, and that's just what we can think of on the top of our head that we would do more often than not. If we no longer have to do that, what is the short-term impact of that? Here's a short-term one. Targeted ads. So normally, if you say something, you guys can all try this, right? If you say something about food, right? Say man, I really want some chili cheese fries, or man, I got a taste for some Chinese food, or man, I really want some Jamaican food. Let's just say you say that around your phone. Like clockwork, within the next 5 minutes, if you go on your web browser, you go on your social media site, you'll see an ad about that. I don't know how that works. I don't know how they do that stuff, but it's just interesting how that occurs. But normally if you go on a website, you buy some shoes, ladies, y'all in there buying, y'all probably just be looking at purses online. I don't even know if y'all buy them actually. Y'all just look at them and go, wouldn't it be nice to get one of those nice Louis Vuittons, or that Dior, Chanel? I guess that wait list is too long, but you just look at it. They can't send these ads on these websites anymore. Ad placement starts to become under pressure, right? Because now a lot of places like Booking Holdings, which used to be Priceline, a lot of these things in which you would go to, and then they would shoot you an ad and they would redirect you, might acquire you as a customer, might give you a discount because you see it and you click it, whatever the case is. Now you won't be seeing those. This fundamentally changes data, right? And remember what I told you guys, data is money. Data is money now. Your data is money. It's liquid gold to these companies, right? They feed off getting your data like a data vampire, right? And so that tells me two things. One, where your eyes are at is going to fundamentally change even more drastically than it has before. So now you're not perusing these websites because we have agents who you cannot send targeted ads to because they don't care nothing about that other stuff. They go directly to the source because they've sourced out all that other crap, found you the best price and paid it, connected you, and done what you want done. Now, brand loyalty can start to play a picture in this because maybe you're willing to pay more for brand loyalty and how they figure out your personality to automate your purchases and all those things. This has all have to be ironed out over time, which I believe we can make an AI robot of any one of us, and we'd be shocked at just how good it can duplicate us. So I believe that's possible. But where our eyes are, where we send targeted ads, how they collect data will fundamentally change. And so what does that mean, right? In short terms, the places now where people expend their energy to primarily personally focus on is going to be even more prevalent. So now you've scaled back time. Remember, time is money, right? And we never understood what that means until we got older and we started studying and stuff. Now the time in which you allocate towards YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, because these are things AI agents are not going to do for you. This is your personal desires. They will scale even higher. You will have even more time to peruse and look through TikTok and be on the gram and be on YouTube, which means one, more data for your YouTube, more data for Instagram, more data for TikTok, more advertising dollars will be layered to those platforms because one, they need to find out where the consumers are used because businesses is all about following the consumer and guiding them, right? Because a lot of these products, we don't even know if we want them. They just create them and tell us that we want them, and then they make us adapt them over time. That will still happen. But part of it is understanding tendencies and where the customer is headed and, hey, are you leading this way or that way? Well, you're going to be on all those places, and that's the only place you will actually be in real time anymore. Because if you think about it, I want to take a trip to Japan. You tell your AI agent, hey, I have a trip planned for Japan in 2 months. I will need 2 tickets, and I want a direct flight, which I don't think you can get one. I'm just arbitrarily making this, right? And I don't want to leave at night because I want to be awake so I can do my work on the plane. So, and I don't want to be in a economy. I need some space for my legs and stuff. So make sure it's at least business class. If you can get first class to an upgrade for a good deal, take that. You tell your AI about all that, and they got 2 months to predict, and they're doing all these things in the background. Well, you're not going to have to go on that website. You get what I'm saying? So we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but you can start to project a little bit like, wow, this is pretty powerful. And as we're watching automation around vehicles and the roads and drones being out, like all of this stuff is slow, but it's going to pile up over time. Now, remember, we overpromise in the short term and underestimate in the long term. In layman's terms, we think we can do almost anything in the short term. We be like, we can do this and we can do that, and we absolutely cannot. We are in short-term misguided people. We overestimate what we can accomplish in the short term, and we underestimate what we will accomplish in the long term. So we don't even have any ideas what's going to be happening in the future. It's going to be way bigger than any of us can actually imagine. We don't have the capacity to imagine it right now because so many things are being developed and created. Our minds can't even grasp these concepts and ideas because we're inundated with so many different things and so many businesses, and our minds are not ready for this. So we think we're going to get self-driving vehicles in the next 2 or 3 years. It ain't going to happen. It's too difficult. Legislation takes too long, too many political influence going on. Inflationary pressures, spending power will go down because we are going to really stop lending as much because we're getting nervous. You're starting to see liquidity issues in the private markets and things like that. All this stuff will play out. But 15 years from now, when you need to be making these decisions, because when you hear companies say we're making plans for 10, 15 years out, the reason that they say these things because they understand in the short term, this business is going to flop. We might lose $1 billion on this. Remember, Meta Reality Labs was losing like $14 billion a year. It was some 26 billion. It was a lot of money, and they're never getting that money back. Short-term money loss, long-term the impact will be great. So it just tells me that the data collection in which how they are currently incorporating it will alter and change. In places where we actually intentionally put our eyes is going to be impactful. Now let's go back and tie that to Paramount. Paramount acquired Warner Brothers, who lost out on the NBA deals and they lose on the NFL deals. Disney outbidded them. Disney has better connections there, right? And a couple other places. Amazon got either Thursday or Friday. They picked a day for or one of the games where they get to host it or something. I forget which day it is. And, Apple is getting into – so the bidding wars with tech companies, they cannot compete. And so what they found is that one of the ways in which holds a person's attention or makes people want to buy a streaming service in the first place is tying sports to it, which is remarkably sad of us as Americans and whatnot. But a lot of what drives it is like if there's sports tied to that premium package there, then you'll pay for it. And that's why Paramount is so heavily focused on having to get sports rights back. They sold their TNT halftime show to Disney, and because they weren't going to get, they didn't have the other deals with the NBA anyway, so they weren't going to be able to sustain that business. But they now realize, dang, if the focus in which we use targeted ads and also where a lot of people are putting their eyes to will be heavily disrupted by AI agents, well, we need to get a platform, or we need to get involved in a platform that has direct attention, and sports is one of them. We manually put our eyes on sports. We cannot have someone watching sports for us. You might get a synopsis of the game. Hey, what happened in the fourth quarter? You might like that, but we're going to watch the highlights of it, and we'll intentionally watch the games. That's one thing we are going to personally do. And then Instagram, TikTok, we are going to personally scroll through that. So I see a big boom for advertising dollars for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, the streaming world, right? So if you see streamers, right, there's a reason why they have blown up, because people are actually watching them in real time. So those where the eyes will go, because people are, I don't know, really invested in streamers' worlds where like a guy sitting in front of the computer just talking about random stuff that's not really educational or beneficial for you. It's just entertaining. Is more important to us. People love to be entertained. And I understand that. I ain't going to fight against it. The education is not as valuable as the entertainment, unfortunately, in this world. And so a lot of money will be behind entertainment services. So the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the TikTok, they are going to explode. Well, what the type of concentration that they have on eyeballs and data will just increase with the invention of these AI agents. And I think that's going to be a huge breakdown. I think it's going to be remarkable just how much money is going to start flowing into those assets there. So just what I've been seeing, what I've been watching, guys. It's Sunday. You guys watch me struggle stream the last 3 weeks. Eventually, I will get into rhythm again, but it's going to take me some time. But I enjoyed the show. I hope you guys had a good time. You get out, enjoy your Sundays. Please, please, please do not quit your day jobs. Collect every single dollar and grind, grind, grind. And remember, we had these conversations. Remember, I told y'all the downturn will happen, and you will be able to navigate them better because you sacrifice the now for the long-term outcome. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot worse than we've ever thought. But I'll be prepared. You'll be prepared, and we'll be ready to go. All right. So, guys, have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. See you guys next week. And until next time, we gone.